you, Kristen. You should be. I don't know if you're able to grab it. Okay, everybody, we're live on the live stream. We'll get the meeting started in just a couple minutes.
So does that show who Catherine's watching, or she's part of the meeting? Or?
She's part of the meeting, so she's, yeah, we'll have a couple people remote tonight.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wondered, so if someone watches, did they show up?
No, these are
Like
panelists in the webinar. So it would be when we were full virtual,
right.
that would be where all the trustees were showing up. So this, yeah,
yeah, no, I get that. So if I wanted to see like how many people are actually watching,
we have to go look at YouTube, and then on the YouTube, it'll tell us how many people are watching.
You can't tell live. I mean, it doesn't, I mean,
I think we can. I think we can tell live. Give me a second. There's one watching right now, and it's me. So,
I got one.
but then we can see who's watching live, and then we can see later how many people have watched it later on.
At some point,
yeah. 'No.
She has been flying in here
Right,
at 5:59.
No, exactly, that's fine.
Yes, she's got that down.
Yeah.
Six.
Okay. I will call the Board of Trustees to order Tuesday, October 12th meeting with the first order of business being public participation. So I don't know if we have any public participation.
Hold on, Jed. If you want to talk, because we can't hear over the live stream, so I've got a mic up here for you. I got you. I got you.
Hi, my name is Jared King, and I had three things I wanted to discuss today. I can't think of I can't read my handwriting on the last one, so we're just going to be talking about two. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is a situation that we had about a week or so ago when I had been fined. But just as a background, I don't get allergy type reactions in the spring at all, but I do in the fall. Usually it's dust, or it's actually technically the excrement of dust mites on dust. But for whatever reason, I don't know what was going on, I had an allergic reaction. So I had watery eyes, runny nose, and sneezing just on a spur of a moment. You don't even have any kind of warning. So I was in the library, and if I had a sneeze, I'd pull my mask down and then sneeze into my Kleenex or some toilet paper, or I would pull my mask down and blow my nose. And Frank said that I could not do that, that I would have to go out in the hall do it, which I'd be glad to do if I had any warning, and sometimes I did do that. But he then told me that I had to leave the building. A couple hours later, I was totally fine. And I was just over there inside because it was getting a little cold outside, by the vending machine. And I'm sorry, it was by the vending machine. And then I moved to take a phone call over to the chairs. And I guess Donna saw me, came out and said, "You've been told, Mr. King, you need to leave the building." And so this got me thinking a little bit about our procedures and how we're handling situations like this. And there were two things that I think bothered me the most. One, at least the way my mind thinks of it, is the distinction between civil and criminal law. So are we saying that somebody who had no anticipation of having an allergic reaction is somebody who had, what's called mens rea, like bad thoughts about what was going, that he was acting in a bad manner, as opposed to what I would describe as a responsible manner on my part, versus just the wrong itself? That is there some kind of threat to any of us in the building, anyone else, regarding my symptoms? And then the second part of that is, basing our decisions based on science. Because at this point, we've had a number of studies on COVID-19, and we really do know a lot. So one of the things that's really good that the library does is we have a mask mandate for all, regardless of your vaccination status, because we do know that COVID is spread regardless of vaccination status. Vaccine assists in terms of the symptoms one could suffer for a very certain part of the population. And there are 6 factors, and I'll go over them because it might be helpful to you in terms of designing procedures in the future. We have almost 100% correlation if you have all 6 factors that you're going to be going into the critical care, intensive care, conceivably on a ventilator. So actually, when those people get to the hospital, they're almost immediately put into intensive care. The number one is if you're immune suppressed. You could be taking cancer drugs. You could have some sort of anti-inflammatory type situation. You have some autoimmune disease. And by the way, the symptom, with COVID is about a 15-day map. 4 or 5 days to actually start suffering symptoms. Those people, with about a day or so, they're having real difficulty breathing and they're going to the emergency room. Second is, I believe, if I remember correctly, was being over 80. So that's actually your telomeres or your chromosomes, whittling down over time and having more and more difficulty fighting off infection. So, when you're 15 or so, fighting off pneumonia is no big deal. When you might be 88, it is a big deal. Third was, I believe, obesity. And let me just, before I continue with the rest of the list, just give you a background. The big difference between, am I going too long?
There's going to be too long, and I do want to hear your second issue. So I would be
right. So,
definitely want to
So
talk to
let
you
me
about
just
this.
bring back to why I actually is here, as opposed to give you a education on COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, because you're right, I do wander. So the only issue I want to make is that we should treat whatever's going on as a civil type matter, at least the way my mindset works, which is if there's a problem, that we need to address the problem, but we don't need to take it into a situation where we are saying that there was a matter of fault. The issue here is if I had, as I did in symptoms, watery eyes, runny nose, and sneezing just on a spur of the moment, that is an allergy response. That has nothing to do with the responses of COVID-19, which would be very similar to influenza. Number one would be a fatigue. Number two, muscle aches. And then number three, a cough. In fact, I had a friend who had COVID. So it was a very hard cough. It really hurt his chest. I had shown none of those symptoms. So, our staff may not even realize what exactly is symptoms associated with COVID. Okay, so then the second issue is something I brought up when I was last here, which could be over a year ago or so. And that was our selection process. I was specifically referring to our DVDs, but it'd be true of our books too, et cetera. And that was the time where Jeff said, well, we do have some sort of thing online about what that is, and it doesn't say that at all. Now, during this COVID-19 period, sometime I think it was last summer, I just bumped into Lisa, and Lisa told me this is what she does. So we actually had a very interesting conversation. But all I was looking for is what are the selection guidelines? And it's actually a really good question. It's something for you as trustees to decide. Are we determining, when we're looking at our materials, the quality of the material, and whether it's subjective or objective? When I say, let's use DVDs as an example, I can tell you what movies I like, what movies I think people in this community would like? Or is it, you know, the number of Academy Awards or that kind of thing? Because it's not just my opinion, obviously, everyone has his own opinion. How broad it appeals to the community. First of all, I guess what I was is whether we're trying to meet with different people, like let's say women or young or men or what have you, versus a broadness of appealability. Are we looking at how many, if this need is covered by other materials that are in the Upper Hudson library system, so we don't really care in terms of our acquisition process, or we should and put stuff that our community wants and is using. So those were the kinds of considerations. And I know that Michelle's told me, Jared, any recommendations you want to make, you just let us know. But it shouldn't be necessarily what I think is a good movie. Oh, another one, I thought it was a surprise. Like you didn't expect, it's not just like movies that are recognized as good. There are many movies, like it's like here, for one example, I think Dark Passage is an excellent movie. It did very poorly at the box office. And so there are lots of things where, you know, it can be, it's always a pleasure to get a surprise in life. Yeah, so it's something like that. Those are things that I think the trustee should think about. And I would appreciate getting some feedback on that, because then of course I would be glad to, tell Michelle certain things that I've learned over this process, because I've used the COVID-19 period to sort of like kick the bucket list in terms of what movies that I never seen before. And like my father's favorite movie was the Treasure of Sierra Madre, and I finally saw it. And so yes, it's a very good film, but here's a great example. I would say a very male-oriented film. And I'll finish with this, but just that film went over budget, so there's a lot of tension between Jack Warner, the producer, and John Huston, the director. And John Huston usually was very good about spending, but they had a lot of problems with the set, with a lot of rain and all this other kind of stuff. So, but anyway, they approved the last scene as a special order. And the reason is that whole movie, I think, only appeals really to men. And that last scene about where one of the characters, Walter Huston's character, the older guy, tells the young guy, go up to see Cody's widow. It's peach season again. In other words, it would appeal like a possible love situation. And that was, I think, added on just to say, hey, we have to, appeal to other people to sell the movie. So anyway, those are the two issues I just want to bring up. And anytime you can get back to me about the standards, that'd be great.
Okay.
And the other thing, of course, the first thing is, in this era of COVID where things are a little rough right now, we really do need to think about, how we're interacting with people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other? Sure. I may be difficult, but
Everybody hear me? You think we're good? Okay. My name is Ann Moore. I live at 39 Borthwick Avenue, right down the street here on that big white house with the green trim. I've lived in this neighborhood almost 30 years and been a neighbor to the library for almost 30 years. My concerns are a little bit different from what you previously heard. Mr. Kirkpatrick was very nice in sending me the link at my request to your draft master planning report that I have taken the time to take a look at. And while I'm assuming at some point there is going to be some sort of public forum and public discussion of that document, yes. What I would like to do is after my I have some questions, those can wait, but my major comment is after reading that document, it seems that the community was surveyed. I don't necessarily remember getting a copy of that survey, but that may be me. I've just recently retired, and so my life was a blur for a long time. So I may have gotten it and it just didn't register. However, what I know I did not receive as an immediate neighbor to the library was a survey designed for the immediate neighbors of the library. And the reason that I think that's important is because we live here. You guys come and work here. All right, and then you go home. And we're still here. The things that you make decisions about, we're still here for. And so there have been good things and bad things over the years. A lot of it has to do with the director. So I congratulate you on having some of those issues that we've had over the years disappear. But I think the perspective that you will get from talking to or surveying immediate neighbors to the library might be somewhat different from what is reported in the document that I received and read. I would imagine that we're going to bring things up that other people who come to the library and then go home don't know about. So I am here to encourage you, and I will be staying for the rest of the meeting too, but I'm here to encourage you to please take some time to reach out to those of us who live near the library, live in this neighborhood, and talk to us about our experiences, not necessarily with the collection and that sort of thing, but our experiences in living near the library and what that really means. And so that's what I'm here for tonight, as well as to hear what goes on in the meeting. Okay, thank you.
I have a question though. How would you define the immediate neighborhood?
Well,
Other than the family?
Okay,
So
well,
is that
and,
immediate or not?
well, for my definition,
Okay.
probably not.
Okay.
Okay, not that you are not, let's say within walking distance.
Yeah.
But I would say that if you can stand in your backyard or in your front yard, depending on where you live, and you can see the library, I would say that's an immediate neighbor.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Any other public participation on this? Anything online?
Let me check. Nothing by email.
Okay, great. So let's go to the previous meeting minutes. Any questions on those? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, that passes.
Mark, can I ask a quick question? Sure. My computer's not working here.
Okay.
Is there a way, can you screen share, like project things on there? Or is that gonna make it a mess?
I can. It's going to take over. I mean, I guess
The whole thing.
people at home, it doesn't matter if they're staring at us at a table or there. So give me a sec.
Okay, so we'll go to the financial report.
Okay, so regarding the revenue and expense report, I would say that expenses are tracking consistently with the prior year, and we're running at about 5% under budget. On the revenue side, we received almost 2.7 million in real property taxes, or 64% of the budget, and a little bit ahead of the prior year at this time. We've also received about 7,800 in fines, lost book, and photocopy fees to date, or about 35% of the budget for these items. That does include some fines that had been collected in the prior fiscal year, but we didn't receive until this year.
Rough order of magnitude, how much is that defined from the previous year?
Oh,
Just very rough.
I'm not,
$1,000.
yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was maybe around 1,000, 1,300, something like that. I don't know, does anyone have any other questions about the report itself, or the disbursements?
Oh, just a quick question on the taxes. Will there be an additional payment from the property taxes as other, for example, folks might be late, or are you anticipating some additional payments from the district, or?
Yes, there will be, yeah. Any other questions? I also wanted to give you a brief update on the audit. Field work was completed the last week of September. They were here actually less than what they projected to be. It was just a couple of days. They're in the review process right now, which involves several steps in order to put the financial statements together. And we expect to receive a final draft from them probably the end of October. We might even get it a little bit sooner than the end of October. And I plan to have a finance committee meeting so that we can review the draft before we present, before the results are presented at the November board meeting. And again, the auditor from Marvin and Company will be here to make that presentation. But we'll have a chance to look at them internally and ask any questions and get a sense of where we are. I think, you know, we're in really good shape, and I think that the statements are going to look very good.
Sherry, I have one comment about the audit as a process.
Mhm.
Okay, this is sideline. Annually, we look at, as a board, approving like the contractor, the consultants, and who we're going to work with.
Right.
The timing of that action for us is not in sync with the audit. Okay, so for instance, if we're looking in June of every year, what we want to do with the audit process, it's too late. Okay, I was thinking we should think about just talking about our plan for the upcoming year at another time. Perhaps it's right after we complete an audit. Perhaps it's the first of the year where we just come back and maybe the financial officer says, here's my recommendation. Here's where I think we're going next year. Everybody okay with it? Which is basically what we do with everybody else. But June just does not work for the audit. So I'm just suggesting that as a little bit different process for the audit.
Right. No, that's a good point. We can certainly have a conversation at some point, whether it's, you know, early in the new year. That would be a good time frame to do that. And just, you know, touch base and make sure that we're all, you know, in agreement that we're going to move forward. You know, when, as and if we get to a point where we might want to do an RFP for the audit, that process would have to take place much sooner than, you know, June, because there's a lot of planning that goes into it on the auditors who are selected, especially if they selected new auditors. There's a lot of planning that goes into that for them to be ready to perform the audit. So that's a good point.
But I think the financial officer should make a recommendation. That should be part of our process.
Okay.
That should come, and I think most years it's going to be like, that's probably where we want to go. So,
Right.
thank you.
I also included a little summary of the fund balance, because I know we've had some discussions periodically about what the fund balance looks like and how, and how it's grown over the past 5 years. So I did a little bit of an analysis, and you can see that we've had accumulated budget surpluses over this time period of over 2 million. And we spent 841,000 in capital projects, resulting in a net increase to the fund balance of about 1.2 million. Right now, the current fund balance stands at about 3.7 million. So you can see there's been steady growth over the years. And I think, a lot of that is due to the fact that we do budget for some capital spending and we don't always spend it. We set it aside. We know that at some point in the future, we're going to need some major repairs. So the money's available for us to make those repairs, or at least, some portion of the funding is available. So I just wanted you to have a snapshot of how the fund balance has grown over the past few years.
Thank you. I do think it's important as clarity to people who might not be aware of this. That is a gross surplus. We have to have something like 4 months worth of cash flow, which greatly reduces that number. That is not available because every year we need cash to run the library until we start getting revenues in September. So we do not by any means have an available surplus in that area, and it would be reduced by well over $1 million.
Right.
Yeah, I think you had provided that number before, I think of the an estimate of the 4 months and what the actual
Right.
number of the fund balance was. Can I ask you a question? And part of it is just like, I'm trying to read this chart kind of on the fly here.
Mhm.
The capital projects fund that's listed there, is that an actual fund?
Yes.
It is, okay.
Thank you, Sharon. That looks good. That's helpful just to show the flow.
Any other questions on anything?
I think we just need a vote.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to figure this chart out actually, so.
Thank you.
Give me a
Because I
second.
thought
here.
it was just me.
No, no, no.
That's really hard.
So the 6/30/2021 preliminary fund balance, that's prior to, like, we're in October, so.
That's as, right, that's as of June 30th, 2021. So once we get the draft financials,
uh,
we'll know exactly what that fund balance is going to be. And it's going to be close, but it's going to be off by a little bit because of some adjustments.
And then if you had to, at the risk of asking a question, I'm not sure I want to know. I mean, at the end of the day, what's available to spend?
So,
I mean, you have to, I know it's a balancing, you have to keep fund balance for the 4 months. You have
Right.
to keep fund balance
right,
for emergencies and such,
Right,
but,
right.
but it looks like this goes up and down here, except for the 1 year. We constantly are increasing the fund balance, which is a good thing,
right.
but is it the 1.2? Or is
Um,
it something, is it different?
Well, the 1.2 is well, it's what, that represents the increase in the fund balance over 5 years.
Okay,
So I would say that we could set aside $1 million for spending easily.
Okay.
Maybe a little more, but maybe we want to be really conservative about that to make sure we have enough for, I don't know, whatever the next pandemic, I don't know,
right,
God forbid, right?
yeah,
I mean, this is a question that we have, as a board, have brought up before to say, I think what we've said is we always need to subtract out the cash need for the
Right.
beginning of the year.
Right.
right,
And we always need to leave some sort of emergency contingency,
Right.
okay? And we've never really said, is that a formula? What is it, okay? So I think, I hate to put Sherry on the spot and say, what's the number? But I think we've
Right.
always kind of looked at it as, when we came to the HVAC project, we looked and we said, how much did we have in the fund balance?
Right.
Did we think we had enough for X project? And we
Right.
said, yes, we can
Right.
live with that.
Right.
So we know that we have to take two things out. Whenever you look at the fund balance, you say, what is available? You must take out a cash flow number and you must take out something that is, a sufficiency contingency for the emergency.
Right.
Okay,
And that
so,
number, can vary,
Yes,
like, a certain
yes.
percentage or certain benchmarking across the budget and stuff.
The other thing is, if we decided to commit a portion of this fund balance to some type of capital project,
Right,
we can always uncommit a portion of it. That, it's not a permanent thing. You know, I think it's just a question of, if we want to formalize it and commit a piece of the fund balance, we can do that by an entry on the books so that we can see it, so we can always look at it and know what it is, instead of just saying, well, here's the total, but I think we can use a part of it. And we can always uncommit it, or, you know, if we spend it, then, you know, it may get to a point where the debt committed balance is zero because we spent it. So I think it can be a kind of a flexible thing.
You know, what would be really helpful for me is walk us across one of those, one of those
Sure. I can do
lines.
that.
For example, like, because I'm just trying to figure out what the columns mean and all the rest. So let's say for 2017.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because I just want to make sure I fully understand what the chart says. So let's say, so you have 6/30/2017 total is 3,017,000 and change.
Right.
What total means, is that the total amount budgeted, raised, what is that? What's this?
That is the total fund balance as of the end of the fiscal year 2017.
Such a fund balance.
That's the fund balance. That's
Okay.
after we had whatever revenue we collected and whatever expenses we had
Okay,
was added to what was in the fund balance in the prior year to come up with the fund balance as of 6/30/2017.
and what does
Part-
general
A
fund?
part of that fund, so we have two funds. We
Yeah.
have the general fund and we have the capital projects fund.
Okay,
Capital projects fund is really only active when we have a capital project going on.
okay,
So we need to record revenue and expense within the capital projects fund when we have a capital project.
Okay.
That's why we have a separate fund for it. So in that year, at the end of the fiscal year, we had a balance in the capital projects fund of 670,000 and a balance in the general fund, that's everything else, about 2.3 million.
and you add those two together, you get the general.
Exactly. Those two
Oh, the
added,
to- yeah,
those
to-
two added
total.
together equals the three.
Got it. So you go backwards almost, you're adding from right to left.
I know, it's an accounting thing.
No, I'm just,
No, I
that's
know.
very helpful.
I
Okay,
know people get confused.
got it. Okay, got it. That makes sense. Got it. All right. That's what was throwing me.
Okay. And then on the other side, I just tried to show, you know, what was the budget surplus in that year?
Mm-hmm.
So we had the budget surplus was 191,000,
Mhm.
but we spent some money in the capital projects fund, so the net budget surplus was 140, almost 147,000.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yep.
You just said.
Want to make sure we talk about the HVAC every meeting.
Yes.
I think it's probably worth noting too, since we're discussing this in the board meeting, that the amount of the surplus for the library, I believe, is cited when we go out for the budget.
Yes,
In the overview page that we publish,
right.
we always talk about, this is our surplus, this is how much we need to set aside. So we do that for transparency, and we have been doing that for a number of years.
Right.
Right. I advocate that we do that as early as possible. Last time, I think my first year doing the budget, it came in towards the end of the process as opposed to at the very start of it. Yep, I agree.
Any other questions on chart or anything in the financial report?
I do have one thing. I did mention on the revenue and expense report. I noticed that I raised a question for Jeff and Shari about an equipment. It looked like, I didn't realize it was an equipment purchase, but the book drop deposit box was actually in there. But
Right,
it didn't say equipment purchase. It was to a particular company. So I had asked about that.
yeah, the way this report, it's, what we do is list the actual vendor.
Yeah, sure, of
We don't
course.
list the,
Yep.
you know, the purpose.
Of course.
So Sherry, when we talk about the amount of money we need to have on hand in the fund to cover the 4 months,
Mhm.
right? Is it reasonable to approximate that 4 months is 25% of our annual budget is what we would need to have on hand?
Yes, yes,
Okay, so if you start with that 25%, it's basically $1.1 million,
right,
right,
exactly.
of that general fund that we need to have at all times.
Right.
And if you add your safety factor to that, right, and you call it a 1x safety factor, right, it's 2.2 million you're talking about.
Right.
for a capital project, or wouldn't want to touch without really carefully understanding how lean we wanted that safety margin to be.
Right.
Okay, so, all right, so we're looking at about $1.5 million right now.
Right.
Right, but money to be put towards these very large projects we've been talking about. Okay.
But potentially draw down the amount of money we would either have to raise or bond or whatever.
Right, and it's important to note that even if there was a bond, if we're seeking a New York State Library construction grant money, which we absolutely should, why would we not look for state money if we were going to do something? That cannot be bonded money. It has to be money that the library already possesses for the match. So if it's a 50% match, which is all our library is eligible for, that money cannot come from a bond because you can't borrow money and then get money from the state and then also get money from the state. It doesn't. So you have to have cash in hand to match the construction fund money.
Well, actually, I think you have to have, mathematically, you would need to have all your cash in hand first to spend it and then recoup the money. From a cash flow perspective, I think you need to, if I were planning it, I would say if I'm doing $1 million project and I believe the state is going to give me 500,000, I'm not going to start it with 500,000 in the bank. I want to see the million in the bank to get the money from the state later and use that for something else.
Yep.
I think it's dicey the other way. That's my opinion, conservative, but.
I think you certainly don't start until you are 100% sure that the money's coming. The state's good for it, and then we have to look at the cash flow.
You have to look at the cash flow because things can change how long it's going to take them to reimburse you. And
Yeah.
how much of a cushion is it? If you're talking about a $50,000 match from the state, we can carry that.
Right.
Okay. If you're talking about $500,000, we may not want to carry that. It's just a concept to think about.
If we get a $500,000 construction grant ever, I will literally be the happiest library director on the planet.
I don't think that's happening.
That's yeah. Lisa's on the committee. Typically, like when we got the $280,000 grant, that was one of the largest grants that had been given out.
So it's not as much of a factor.
Still
Okay, any other questions on the financial report? Take a motion.
I make a motion to accept the financial report as presented on pages 4 through 11, and specifically the disbursements that are being requested, disbursement schedules.
Okay, great. Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion carries. Personnel report.
Okay, you'll see the personnel report. There are four. There's a number of actions that are up above where we have moved to fill a bunch of positions that were previously approved. And now I have 4 requests for positions open. There are 2 part-time library clerks that are just replacements of people who have resigned those positions. There's 1 full-time librarian who has resigned, and this is the backfill. I'm seeking the approval to fill the backfill for that position. And then because the librarian 2 list is on hold from Albany County, I have not received any information about when that might free itself up. We're getting very lean on our librarians to be able to cover the desk. And I'm seeking to fill a full-time temporary librarian 1 that would replace the body that librarian 2 would do, but no, of course, not the management function of that person, just a body to be on the desk so that we can fill the schedule appropriately until such a time as that list becomes released, and then we can go through the hiring process. And then that librarian 2 wouldn't come on until the temporary position was eliminated. And then we would move forward with hiring the librarian 2.
You know why the list is being held up?
The test is being audited. They're auditing the results of the test, or they're auditing the test. Albany County is conducting an audit of that list. And until that is completed, no one can be hired from that list. So, and I know we're not the only library that's in this position, but we have an open position as a full-time person, and it's a significant portion of the staffing for that department. We can't replace the management part of that, but we can replace the body temporarily.
So when I guess, can you walk us through what happens when the list opens up? You hire off the list, suspicion go away?
Yes, that's why it's temporary. So
Okay,
it's
the person knows coming in. It's
Right.
temporary.
Yep. I mean, that's why, they're the people who accept a temporary hire. The rules are a little bit different under civil service,
Right.
which are the people on the list you can hire. We can traditionally go down lower on in the librarian one list to be able to seek someone for temporary because it's not as a desirable position, of course. It's not a permanent position. It's less desirable, but it does give a chance for someone who's maybe fresh out of library school, an opportunity to get some experience, and they, we can have them on the desk. So it's an even exchange, but they absolutely were very clear with them that this position is of a limited time. And when we move forward to fill the library too, that temporary position will be, we were able to use temporary positions quite effectively during COVID for 2 of our part-timers, while we didn't have a position opened, while the library was, the schedules were changing constantly. We needed some people who could move around pretty easily. So that worked well for us. So this is the best option that I have right now. Taking out several full-time people from a department is a major hit in the workforce of the department, and we're open our normal hours now. So in order to provide that service and weekends, I need some people.
Do you have any estimate how long it's going to take them to audit the test?
I've asked the question. I've never experienced a county audit of a test or test results before. This is my first time. So I asked the question to the commissioner. I haven't heard an answer. I don't think they're avoiding my answer. Maybe they don't know themselves. I don't know what process it involves. I don't know whether it all is contained all at the county or there is a state part of that process. I literally have no idea, but I don't expect it's a fast process.
Okay, it's gonna go for a year.
If it went for, the temporary position couldn't be for a year. We have strict rules about how long we can hire a temporary position. So if someone's on that list, it would be a maximum of a year. 6 months or a year, depending on where they were on the list. So if it doesn't wrap up in that time, I'll have to get really creative and figure out something else.
Jeff, this doesn't look the personnel report doesn't look any more significant to me than it does in any other time.
Okay.
Are we experiencing a lot of the challenges that a lot of other industries?
I think we're experiencing some challenges that are similar to other industries, but our own particular flavor of it. We are not having as difficult a time recruiting people as maybe some other agencies are having. We're still seeing some fairly robust candidate pools. Chris, we have interest. It's maybe not as much as we would normally expect, but we're not getting no interest.
Okay.
But we're certainly, when we lose a full-time person, when we lose a full-time librarian, that's a significant event for us. So there's not so many of them in the building that's not a pretty big deal. So.
Okay, any other questions on the personnel report?
So,
Second. Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposition, that's motion carries. Director's report.
All right, so let me see if I can do all of this at the same time. I'm so happy I don't have to switch between camera numbers. All right, so we're still working on the AC coil for the air handler unit. We're still seeking another quote. Just getting a contractor here to give me a third quote is a challenge right now. Working with our main vendor to see if they can go through a government contract procurement process for us and quote us that way so that we can not have to get 3 quotes, but that is all working extremely slowly right now. So I hope that we will have the AC coil installed in time for the next air conditioning seasoning next summer. On the good side, we had a relatively inexpensive repair to a ductless split unit, which is what cools the IT office and all the equipment in the IT office, sort of separate. That's relatively inexpensive, and we were able to just move forward with that, and we were able to find someone to do that work. So that makes me very happy. I did want to say we had a couple comments about masks in general, and I think, you know what, I have no idea what people are thinking right now, but we have seen an incidence in people who are frustrated with masking in general here in the past 3 or 4 weeks. So there's a difference. So I don't know what the source of that difference is, but there are definitely, we heard some comments earlier tonight about that. So, we did have to call the police to be involved in one incident, and that's the first time that's happened in 18 months. So, that's that elevated to that level was a bit surprising to all of us. So the librarians in particular are taking the burden on this. They're trying to enforce the mask procedures, and we're going to have some more conversations about this as we go on, because I just don't know. When people are going out in the public and they're going to Hannaford or Price Chopper, nobody is enforcing the mask policies at those places. I still think this is the right answer. I think doing it in a uniform way, the numbers continue to hang very steady at a higher rate than they were last April. They're just pinned there, and they're not moving down in Albany County. So it's a little bit hopeless for the staff. I mean, I can understand their frustration because it's just not moving forward. As you were hearing, national numbers are going down, but we're not seeing that locally yet. So I'm hoping that by the time we talk next month, that will be different. But I just want to make you aware that this is weighing on the staff quite significantly to try to have to say, the amount of noses that are out of masks is a lot, and the amount of people who flat out don't have a mask on at all is surprising, and maybe not as many, but certainly exists. So I just want to make you aware of that that's a significant burden. And when we're talking about the job satisfaction of the existing staff, that's a significant impact on that for them. So I think it's important that be recognized. So yeah.
I know we have signs up that say you must wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. But I think you alluded to, unlike many other places where people go in, we enforce the policy.
Right.
I know there's a lot of signs around, but should we put up a sign that says, we really do enforce it? I mean, those aren't the words, but yeah, please, we really mean this. You will be asked to leave. I don't know what the words are. You guys are better at that than I, but because it seems like people are surprised that it is enforced.
They can be,
And I know that, but it's right there. It's right there. We said, not only do we have a policy, we actually enforce it.
So it's, there it is.
We support you on that,
Yeah,
obviously.
thank you.
We support you. We support the staff. We
I
don't
think
know
it's
how
the right
else
thing.
we can do what we
Right.
can do.
And,
but-
and we do hear occasionally from people who are like, thank you so much. I appreciate this. I feel safer coming into the library because of that. But I think as a general rule, those folks tend to be quieter than, hey, thank you for doing that. I felt comfortable bringing my children into the library.
I've heard it on the street. I've
So
heard it from
maybe-
people saying, you should know, I was there and I witnessed it, and I was very, very impressed with the director and his staff. So particularly people who were on the desk that day. Thank you.
Well, I also think the dilemma is, in a lot of places I go, like the grocery store, even the post office, masks are strongly encouraged.
Yep.
So that's the difference. I think some folks, the policy is, we encourage you to mask up regardless of vaccination status, or it also says if you're unvaccinated, you must wear a mask, and who knows if they check any of that. So I think that's the difference, is in the policy here, I believe it's like the school district, is you must wear a mask here.
Right.
Whereas in many other places in our community, it's strongly encouraged.
And we're one of the few government, how often do people walk into the courthouse, right? How often are people going into other government entities? Probably not often. I'm guessing we're one of the ones. I mean, maybe some people walk into courthouses more than others, but I just think it's one of the few places where, there's people are coming into a government entity, and they may not, it's school and the public library. That's, and for many parts of the public, if you don't have children, this may be the single biggest touch on a government entity. So I count on you as the members of the public and the representatives of the public to just air check me on this and make sure that we're fighting the good fight, because it's anyway, it's tiresome. That's why I said tiresome in there.
Jeff, you make a good point that you can have a wrong impression based on the bubble. Everywhere I go requires a mask. I go to, I go to daycare, I go to school, I go to my office building requires it. I go to public build, I go to government buildings. So I just presume that there's masks everywhere.
Right.
There's a lot of people who, their world is not created of masks. So that's just something important to remember. But in terms of signage, Mary, I think that was a very good idea. maybe something in the hallway. You know, like when you walk into places like the Winter Rise, like in these parks, they're like, no, it's really happening. Like maybe once every 5 feet, like, no, we really mean it.
10 feet.
Yeah, but if we have like, 5 signs kind of like in the middle, then we say, nope, like, and kind of make it funny, like make it lighthearted. No, we mean it. You will be asked to leave if we do not run it. We understand that not everyone does that. We are. I know you were creating something.
Well, it's poor Kristen. She's the one who has to deal with it. But at this point, I'm open to ideas. That's why I wanted to talk about it, because it's just,
We need to go back and have somebody at the door table.
we tried that for a little bit when we had to go back, and it's just, again, not enough staff and another service point.
Yeah.
Scheduling that became impossible. It became impossible. So we're doing the best we can. We're sort of letting the hallways go a little bit, in as much as strong enforcement and sort of sticking more strictly right at the door. Though when I'm out in the hallway, I enforce the mask policy out in the hallway as well. But I give people a little bit of time to condense. And that's one of the things I was talking about maybe with Mary earlier. We're losing I don't know what's going on with the masks. So we have the masks at the doors, and there's just people are taking a massive amount of masks. So it's a lot of masks. I don't know. It's more masks than traditional. We're trying to keep up, but we may have to pull those back into the library too, just so we keep a little eye on them. I didn't know that was going to become the precious commodity. So,
And maybe also with the footnotes, which I know I get electronically, I think,
Yeah.
oh, we go good part every week or something. There's quite a bit.
Yep.
It's just to
Yeah.
say, strictly enforced. Just
Yeah.
do the
You know,
words,
and I think
in bold, strictly enforced, and that's all it's strictly enforced.
99% of people are compliant. And I want to thank all those people out in the world who are doing, they come into the library, they conduct their business, they go about their thing, and everything is lovely. And I keep trying to, for myself and for the staff, to remember these are the people we're focused on, not so much the negative interaction. So it's important to remember that. So in any case, that's that. I do mention a little bit about the civil service. We already talked about that. We're working on Staff Development Day, which is itself going to be a big challenge. We close the library down on the first Friday in December, and we do a lot of staff training. I think what we're going to do is split the staff in half, and do it a hybrid virtual and in person, and try to get everybody in here and do some training on diversity. And I will probably not be able to get everybody in the building at the same time, which I'd like to do, but we'll get half and half, and we'll be here for both parts of the day. We're still working that out. The challenge, as always, lunches. Like we're in December, so we can't eat outside, and I can't have more than one person at a time in a room. There aren't enough rooms to spread people out to eat lunch. These are the logistical challenges that we have to deal with. But I'm working on that. But we're going to have staff. We're going to have staff doing that. Last year we canceled it, so we're gonna do that training this year. We're pleased to have our Bethlehem School District interns back. It's so wonderful. We were not able to have them in the library last year. They are no longer working with outside company. There's staff from the special ed department that comes with the interns, and we're just, that's a long-term partnership, and we are just delighted to have them back in the building. We are trying to create video tutorials. So Tori, one of our librarians, created a new tutorial for our creative book service. So that will go out on YouTube and be available on the website to try to enhance a tool that can be used from home, so that people can learn how to use it. So there's that. We've been talking a long time about video tutorials, so we're moving on that as much as we can. So we are going to, starting next month, we're going to put a priority on in-person programs. So we're holding this room to 15 and the boardroom to 5. So there's fewer people in these rooms than are normally available. We're going to put a priority for Bethlehem School District residents, and then we'll open up the program to a general audience the last couple of days before the program. So that's not something that makes my librarian heart happy, but it is something that I feel is necessary. And because of the very limited nature of in-person programming, we're going to give that priority to the people who are paying for the library to be here. So that's a change that will be coming into play with the next footnotes. That's the November footnotes. I'm going to hold attendance at those in-person meetings at 15 still. It seems like a number. You look around the room and how many people we have in this room. This feels like a relatively comfortable number for me. An uncomfortable number would be 75. So we're just trying to get that number balanced out, and that's where we're falling. So lots of good programs. The team book boxes are back up. We brought back Copy and Conversation. We've had a lovely October, And so we've able to have a lot more of our programs outside. Children's programs in particular are going to be focused outside. And for programs that are specifically geared at preschool age or under 11, 11 and under right now, we're not going to bring those programs inside. We'll be moving those virtual. I am very hopeful that school age children will be eligible for the vaccine shortly, and then we can reassess that. Soon. People love to see us. Tori again participated in the Five Rivers Fall Fest, and again, like there and at the farmers market, when people see us there, that we're still getting, oh, you're open again? You've been open forever. So for more than a year. But yep, if that's what it takes to have people know that, then I'm very happy to do that. And you may have noticed as you came in the door right outside here, we participated in with a Girl Scout for her Bronze Star. That there's a Kids Making a Difference board outside in the hallway, and each month that will feature a child who's under 18, and they can create a presentation and put that up on the board and tell the community about all the good stuff that they're doing. So that's that was a piece of her Bronze Star project, and we were happy to be able to participate in that with her. If the board is interested, we have a couple events that you are welcome to participate in. On Tuesday, October 19th from 4 to 6, there's going to be a story walk trick or treat at Elmath Park. And folks want to get dressed up either in a costume or something festive, you can hand out treats to kids. And then on October 26th from 4 to 6, again, there'll be a trunk or treat. That will be different, less of a story walk, and it's a trunk or treat event. You know what that is. So we'll be participating in that with, we're in partnership with the town of Bethlehem and Friends of Parks and the Friends of the Library. So if anybody is super interested, feel free to let me know. I can definitely arrange for you to have some of the good treats.
I think I'll be there.
Okay. Are you going to be there? Do you want to work there, or do you want to be there to be there? You don't have to
I
answer.
think I'm gonna bring a little one.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I will look for you there.
I hold out hope to one day participate in the library. Oh, great.
It's a hoop. We're getting there.
One day.
Okay. Well, the story walk is like a Halloween parade, so.
Will you be in costume one of those days? Because I strongly encourage people to, it is a bucket list for your life
It is.
to see Jeff dressed for Halloween. Many of the staff too, but Jeff is always over the top.
I'm getting a late start this year, but yeah, there'll be a costume for me.
For the 26th?
I'm not sure which day I'm participating, probably both of them. Again, we don't have a ton of people, so I will be covering some of those events myself. And just to bring it to circulation, we have these processing backlogs like the rest of the world, so we're not receiving our process books as quickly. You may have noticed that street release date books aren't here on the street release date, which we are all used to having them processed and here in hand well before the street release date. We've been working with our vendor to get those books to come in faster. And we've had to go unprocessed on some of them because they're having trouble getting the people who actually do the book covering and stickers there. So we're bringing some of that work in-house. And everybody in that department was super willing to muscle in and help us get those books out.
You have
So.
to tell me what that means. They literally put the binding on the book?
And not the binding, but when you get a book, there's like a Mylar book cover.
Okay.
The biggest labor of all of that is to put the cover on the book. So a book, when you buy it in a bookstore, will come with like a dust jacket, but it's a piece of paper. When we circulate in the library, it needs to be tougher than that. So we take that book jacket, put it inside a piece of Mylar, and then tape that piece of Mylar to the outside of the book.
Okay.
So that has to be done. And that is something that we outsource to our book vendor because it is tedious
Okay.
and time consuming. And then you have to buy Mylar book covers and have those every place. So we haven't been doing that really very much in years. Sometimes we still know how to do it because we buy books from an off vendor or something. But that was delaying the books getting here on time. So to get them out, Catherine worked with our vendor to divert our books that were waiting to be processed, just send the boxes, send them to us.
Of
And
course you did. Of
and
course
then
not.
they hijacked the pages and everybody else in those two departments and made them cover books. So
Awesome.
it seems to be evening out a little bit, and maybe they were able to hire a little bit more. So we got some books the day before street date, and they were processed. So that was exciting. So I don't want to say that it's better, but maybe things are looking to be better. So this impacts us. These are kind of things that that we have to do a lot of work to make it work right now. So, and then we did replace the American Girl dolls. The dolls that we had really given their all to the popularity of that collection. And so we placed the 5 and then we added 5 more because of their popularity. And we added a new book that goes out with each one, the Making a Difference Using Your Talents and Passions to Change the World. One of those books will circulate, as well as the journal that the child can fill out sort of about the activities that they had with the doll. And then that journal stays with the American Girl doll. So it's, we're making it a literary and reading and writing circulation, as well as, having a doll that people like to play with. So, and then that's my director's report. We have, just to look at the statistics really quickly, we're seeing massive increases over last year again. We were just opening up at this time last year, but we are comparing apples to apples. These are doors open and to doors open numbers. We're seeing increases again and significant increases in our e-collections. Not always compared to last year, which was record e-collection year because people were home. Now we're seeing that soften a little bit, but still the numbers, the circulation of our e-materials is significantly up from where it was pre-pandemic. So it's still a very significant source of our circulation. And we are, we're at 44,330. That is overall, I would like to see about 50,000. So we're not quite back to where we were pre-pandemic. But again, how people are using the library is a little bit different. Right now, we're not seeing so much of the long, not so much library programs, not so much community groups in here, some, but not a lot. And not so much people coming in. Really the biggest surprise to me is in the afternoons, when I would expect every horizontal surface to be covered with a child studying, or studying with a group, or studying with a tutor. Very little of that going on right now. And I think that's just people's comfort with being inside or not being inside. We'll see if that changes as the weather changes, but that still continues to be the biggest difference. People I think are comfortable coming to the library. They go to the circulation desk, they pick up a book, they might come in, select a book, check out and leave. But those longer term hang time in the library is significantly less than it used to be. And then if you look on this graph, you'll just see just really quickly up in the top corner, this number. This is last year's super high e-material circulation, but you can see that this trend line continues to just be straight up. So physical circulation is still significantly higher than e-circulation. That's what this is representing. So this is all our total e-circulation. Physical circulation is obviously higher. So more people still want to check out physical items, but that e-collection is not going down to where it was headed on pre-pandemic. It's still significantly higher than it was before the pandemic. So. Yep. Yeah, or not. I don't think the budget needs to be bumped up. We've shifted the budget. Probably what we're not doing is going to shift the budget back. What we were told to expect, they said, if you want books for the next couple months, order what you need right away. Don't wait for the holds to come in, because there may not be a second print run. We may not be able to get the paper for the second print run of the book. So is that a little bit of trying to make us jump and buy the books? Possibly, but there definitely is a paper shortage. And so if you get a Water for Elephants kind of book that has legs and it just keeps being popular and popular, those second and third and fourth and 12th printings are unlikely to happen on a time frame that we're used to having. So they're like, if you think a book's going to be popular, get your copies early. So
Jeff, what are you thinking you're going to use for reservations at events? Library card information?
yeah, I'll just use the library card information. But if someone doesn't have a card, we'll figure out how to make that work too. If they're a resident, we'll make it happen. Maybe encourage more people to get a library card. All right, that's that.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Any further questions? Okay, going to you, Nyla.
Well, our our meeting is tomorrow,
Okay.
so just give you a little update on some of the things that are going on. We've talked a little bit about the American Rescue Plan funding money that's supposed to be available. I guess UHLS is working with a group. Are you involved in any of that?
Not yet.
No? Okay. They're working with the Capital District Library Council, Mohawk Valley Library Council, and Southern Adirondack Library System to determine how they're going to administer it. It's about $375,000. That'll be split among 4 library systems. So. The focus is going to be on digital equity and inclusion and encouraging library museum partnerships. So we're sort of there.
Yeah.
I guess the guidelines were recently released, so they're working through those to see how we can meet those guidelines and get some money. So the Anti-Racism Task Force has become the Racial Equity Committee. I guess you were involved in that because the Directors Association approved that. Mary Fellows is going to continue to chair it. And to note, they did sign a new contract with McLean Group for training, so maybe we can tap into that. That's it.
And the governor just signed in a trustee training law. I don't have all the details of that yet, but it's going to require a certain amount of training for trustees every year going forward. So we can take advantage of the training that Upper Hudson has available to us.
Great, okay, thanks. New business, emergency patron conduct policy.
Yep. So this is just, we've been focused on the phase reopening plan as the place where we have all of the information about our patron conduct policy. But I needed to bring those 2 documents just into congruence with each other. So this is, again, not the regular patron conduct policy, but our, we're in a pandemic emergency. And, we still had some things in there where we were going to say patrons had to sanitize their hands upon entering the building. We're not requiring people to do that anymore. And public browsing hours would be limited. That's not true. We're at full browsing hours. And then we say in here that we're encouraging library patrons to conclude their browsing activity within 30 minutes. That is no longer the case. People can stay in here and browse for as long as they need to. And then we were also at the time the last time we updated this policy, we were saying that people needed to adhere to the mask guidelines that's outside, but we're not enforcing the mask guidelines for outdoor programs. So I'm looking to have just those minor revisions to sort of bring this into congruence with the phase reopening plan, which has already been voted on by the trustees.
I meant to check this earlier. There's a catch, and I think we discussed this last round. There's a catch-all in there. That's it.
Yes, yeah. But it's and if we have, if in an emergency, if we have to move on that, that's fine. If we have to institute some piece of information becomes available that we have to move on, we're not locked to this, but I still think it's a good idea to bring this back.
I make the motion to accept the policy as presented on pages 21.
Position that.
So we are coming up on the annual Nyla conference. I requested the staff that they're going to try to do an in-person conference this year, and barring some major negative development, they're going to do a socially distant and masked conference in person. Attendance is going to be extremely light. I surveyed the librarians to see who was interested in going, and most people were not. I have 2 people interested in going to the conference this year, so I'm putting forward a proposal to send the 2 of us, Catherine and myself, to Syracuse to attend the annual conference. But I think attendance is going to be below 150 this year, so it's going to be really individualized.
What is it normally?
800. Yeah, it's a hit. So
Can you remember, where's it being held? Remind me?
Syracuse, down in the
Okay.
On Center at Syracuse. Yeah, it's unfortunate because they hadn't been to Syracuse in years because there wasn't an appropriate hotel that was close enough to walk to the On Center. But the Hotel Syracuse has apparently been renovated and meets the guidelines for Nyla now. So They were supposed to have that last year and of course got completely canceled, and they can't cancel again without a significant hit to the organization. So,
Need a motion on it?
Yeah.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Passes. Number 4 meeting.
okay, so here's the deal. I do not have the community room for the November board meeting. I have the board room for the November board meeting. There's a program in here. Because, well, when we were making
Right.
room reservations, things look better in June and July than they look now. So the question is, we have the ability to do a virtual or hybrid board meeting. Would it be the desire of the board for me to set up something similar like this, where some number of us could be remote, and then we could have, do a meeting in the boardroom, trying to keep those numbers a little bit lower?
We really don't think we could fit if we are along the walls.
I mean,
I mean, if we spread out along the walls, I think we would get more people. I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, I do they have the ability to do some in person, so.
I do. So right now, for instance, Catherine is at home participating in the meeting, so you can't see her because she's.
How many do you want in person and how many do you want remote?
Trying to hold that room to 5, but
Maybe we should adhere to that. That's what our policy is for that room. That we should probably live within that policy.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
okay, because that way I could still have if we have a member of the public who wanted to come, they could come and there would be a board meeting to attend. I will certainly be there in the room, and then it's the November meet.
That's kind of.
That is.
We could do a high, I mean,
Why don't you have him remote and have him present?
right, present remotely,
I mean, that's probably easier.
I mean, he did last year, so.
Right.
right.
Okay.
So is the decision, I'm trying to make sure the decision is to go all remote? Is that what you're saying, or hybrid?
No, I think,
Hybrid.
what I recommend is hybrid, but
I can criteria, at least what's
by
that.
the policy.
But if it's only 5 people
Five
and we
people
want
is
to
fine.
leave room for the public, you're talking 1 or 2 trustees.
Right. Thank you. Sorry about that. It's just, we
I
could
think,
try to move the meeting to another night if we wanted to, but I would rather try to hold it on the same night.
I agree. I just want to, I think it's worth clarifying. We're going to have the auditor present remotely. What do people want in hand, in paper form for the meeting?
We'll have the presentation available, and I'm sure he'll send me a PDF, and I can send that out to everybody. So you can have it on the laptop or print it out.
I
How
would
long,
probably want a printed out version. I don't want to print that out myself.
Okay.
I was gonna say, how long is the report?
I don't know how long the presentation is. I mean, it's gonna be multiple pages, maybe 20 pages.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take a copy. I want a copy.
Okay,
I want the full report.
we'll get it printed out.
That would be great.
So maybe we can communicate a couple weeks from now, like, send an email to the full board saying choices and also some, what exactly people need to make a successful meeting. I can do that.
Yeah, okay, sounds great.
Okay. Full business, long range plan. facility.
All right, so we have included in the packet the full long-range services draft plan. So I wanted to include, this is I want to include the services plan, the current iteration of the services plan, and yeah, we wanted the building plan in there. It's okay. So what I was putting in front of the board today was that facilities report, which is not our design. It is the recommended, the report that was created by the architect that we hired to do a physical evaluation, to survey the community and do a physical evaluation of the building, What I'm looking for is to have the board accept that report. And then that can just be entered in to part of the long range plan as noted as that report. I just wanted to keep hitting on because that is not the design that the library is seeking to build, but rather the distillation of the evaluation of the building and the community by the architect. I'd like to put that to bed.
Do you want a motion on that? Or do you wanna-
Yep.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna make a motion.
Yeah, that's like,
I make a motion to accept the long range report.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion, questions? All in favor?
All right, thank you. So then we're going to have this plan that's in here, the long range services plan. We're going to bring back the long range plan committee for one more round to go over this document, and then we'll bring back the long range services plan to the full board for a vote. Joining that with the building plan, we will have a fully voted on long range plan. So
Okay, which at that point, or now after we voted on, where is this that a member of the public would be able to access it on our website or whatever?
it's multiple times. The same report is on the Board of Trustees page from the main website. So main website, Board of Trustees. You look back through the meeting minutes, the building services plan the facilities plan is listed several times. It's included in the packet several times, and then it's a separate link several times.
Can I ask, is there a way maybe not to bury it that deep? Could it be a little bit more easily accessible to the public? Like if I didn't know, if I were a general member of the public, that would be the last place I would think to look. I don't know where I would say to put it, but
Put it
I
in the carousel.
Okay, put it in the carousel. You got it.
Can we highlight it on the socials? Thank you.
No,
No, that's
thank
fine.
you.
No, no,
Yep.
that's helpful.
Jeff, can I ask that potentially for the facilities, whatever committee, for that services report
Yes,
meeting? I'd like to suggest we do that first.
in person. Yeah, committee, we can do our, it's been, so we've been focused on the facility part of this for so
Right.
long. We need to circle back. We just haven't had a lot, we've been doing it here in the board meeting. Scott, we're just going to bring that back, hopefully one more meeting.
Right.
Go through the services plan with fine tooth comb, make sure that what the staff are proposing as far as our services is in fact what the trustees think we should be doing for the next 3 to 5 years. And then bring that to a vote. But I don't anticipate this being a long drawn out process.
Right.
So,
I just
but-
think it's great value, I know, for me, to
Yeah.
have it in person when we can have more time.
You got it.
But-
Okay, so that's helpful. Building committee.
So we met as the building committee and we are proposing that the board charge the building committee with interviewing architecture firms to try to figure out, to try to decide an architecture firm that then the board would work with to create a design.
And refresh people who's on the building committee.
So the building committee is you and Harmeet, Mark as ex officio, and me as not a voting member, but just hanging around.
I have a question. I don't have the answer to this.
Yeah.
I don't know what design build means, but I know it's an alternate to starting with just an architect. I think it has something to do with like, you don't just have the architect do it in a vacuum. It's maybe part of an integrated construction firm that has all those design services. I throw that out to say, have we considered that?
Yeah, so a couple of the architecture firms that I have identified as working with other local libraries do design build projects. So that is a possibility for us, and we will certainly look at that.
I am not advocating it. I just,
Yep.
it is something to. Okay, thank you. Do we need a motion to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Tell me what the motion, I make a motion to charge the building committee to be able to review who will be providing the design, the architectural, make a recommendation to us for the architectural phase.
Correct.
of the project.
For the
Okay.
design. Yep.
All in favor?
Could I suggest that we have a meeting, actually? It would be helpful for me as a member of that committee.
Yep.
To like meet and say, okay, what's this? What's the strategy? What's the timeline? What are the steps?
Yes,
There's a-
absolutely.
Just like if we're gonna do it, like,
Oh, yeah. So,
what are we doing?
Yep.
You know, what are the
What's the
steps? What's the timeline? Yeah. Great, thank you.
Okay, that sounds great. We talked about the long-range service plan meeting, that going to the annual audit in November. We talked about that as well. Is there anything additional? The next item on the agenda is fines. This keeps coming up in different ways and different things, and I'd like to recommend that we set up an ad hoc committee to talk about it. Like, come up with a recommendation or any request. I'm definitely willing to serve on the committee or charge the head of the committee, but I think we should talk about it.
So we're talking about a committee that will actually, similar to the capital projects thing, that is gonna get into the meat of it, talk it
Yep.
through, and then bring back a recommendation to the board. Minor discussion, and then we vote.
Okay, yeah, possibly. the
Okay.
committee results
I
from
just
that.
wanna make sure we're clear on that.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Can I ask as the newest trustee, and I know this has come up, and everyone tells me, and it's come up in almost every meeting that's been discussed before.
Yes.
What was the process that you used before?
For discussing fines?
Yeah.
So I brought up my opinions on what I brought to the board several times when we were discussing other local area libraries and sort of the national trends as far as fines are concerned. So we brought that forward. And as the national library press, such as it is, was talking about library fines, I was forwarding a lot of that information to the trustees just to say, this is something that is getting so much press. I think it's important that everybody be aware that this is something that's being talked about. Albany Public Library moved through a couple different phases as far as no fines for kids, and then a my card process, and then ultimately dropping fines altogether. And other area libraries did that, and some other area libraries did not move for no fines. It is certainly my opinion that I don't think I've made any secret that I think eliminating fines is the way to go. So I've made that opinion very clear, but I'm not here to push that necessarily. My opinion was asked, and I'm given that.
Did you use committees before, or just general board
No.
discussion? Okay, that was my.
Right. I can feel, I feel like it's like the discussion's getting bogged down, and there's some quite detailed data that we have, because we have now an example of open, not open, fines, not fines. And we can see what were the impacts on circulation, what was the impacts on overdue times. Some things that we were speculating on or trying to get data about from other libraries, we now have from our own personal experience.
Okay.
That data is pretty detailed. And I think it would behoove, we could certainly do it here at a full board meeting, but we could also do it at an ad hoc committee. I think it needs a deep dive to have that discussion, because this isn't a, my initial feeling about this was sort of a gut level feeling, and sort of going and hearing about the libraries and the reasons that they were going fine free, resonated with me, but that may not be sufficient enough to make a decision like that. So we need to take a good hard look at the data, which we have. We have our in-house PhD in data analysis. Let's use her, and we'll get that information. And if it's the will of the board that happened here at the board meeting, we can do that. I just was talking to Mark and trying to say, how could we carve out a space to have that deeper dive conversation where we could look at some of that data, and maybe some of the folks are just not interested in that. That's okay too. But
I think the conversation, we had more conversations, and then I think like a lot of other things that got hijacked by I think more pressing issues, more immediate issues. But I think it's time to bring this up. I think since you started talking about it, Jeff, it's an issue that's obviously emerged. And am I correct that New York City?
all three of the New York City systems,
As
but
of last week, all three
Yeah.
of the New York City systems have eliminated fines.
Yeah. So again, so it sounds like it's never been on a committee before, so this is a new recommendation.
this is a new
Yeah,
recommendation,
I'm
right?
sorry,
Yeah.
that was my kind of basic question, but yeah, that history is helpful.
I am.
I'll do
So,
it.
Lisa, Arne,
Can I volunteer with the understanding that I will participate as much as I can?
absolutely.
And if I can't, have a meeting or something, I will participate.
Yeah, so that's very helpful. And I think the first thing we should think about is what data are you looking for? Probably
We have a lot.
have a lot of data. So
If you
what
want
do
to
we
slice
have?
it a different way, we can make that happen too.
Armita, you okay with that? Because I know you were interested too.
Yeah, that's fine. If we keep it to 3, then it doesn't have to be a full meeting and all that. That's fine.
Well,
I mean,
well-
if you're genuinely interested, then you should do it.
I'll give you guys one action item that I'm concerned about, and then the rest of it, that's fine.
Okay, great.
So we need to vote to create that ad hoc committee.
So I need a motion.
So moved.
Great, second. All in favor? Carries. Okay, any other issues? We have no issues before we.
I have one other point with regard to moving forward, talking about architectural firm, et cetera, et cetera. I think that we should be having discussions at a parallel time to talk about potential funding, okay? And I don't mean, how much we're gonna get fundraised or how much, but let me start with, I'm not sure that we can do a project portion of it or a whole thing without some sort of bond issue. Okay? I think that when we meet with the public, we should have something as perhaps as simple as if we decide to bond X amount of money for X period of time, these are our costs. We should know on a sliding scale, I think as a group, we may find that rates are so low now that we would be crazy not to do the whole project. I am not advocating that, okay? But I think it behooves us to look from an educated perspective to say, what is the cost of bonding X amount of money for it 5 years or 8 years or whatever, and know that going in. So if we start looking at $8 million worth of work, and we decide we have $1 million and we want to do this, and this, how much is it going to be before we go in, including things like the cost of putting it on the street. Okay, we need to know these things, even at a general sense, as early on to know whether we're way out of. We may find that we can't bond $2 million. It's just not cost effective. Okay, so I make that recommendation that we start thinking about that.
You got it.
So, I mean, you think that, is that like a finance committee discussion or is that like a staff research piece? I totally agree. So the next step on that conversation.
I think it's a reach out to our resource in the school district that we have talked to once before. Judy has told us there is a resource, I believe it's like Rochester or someplace, a firm that could possibly help us with this. I think that perhaps with a little direction from Judy, I think that maybe Jeff and Sherry, or certainly Sherry on her own, could start making some calls to this company. This is what we're trying to do. Please help me put some perspective on how we need to do this. This is not rocket science, okay? But I think once you start looking at it, Sherry, you're going to be able to say, wait a minute, let's look at this. Wait a minute, let's look at that. Okay.
I also think the bill is goes hand in hand with the work of the building committee, which will start fleshing out recommendations. I think the board has already discussed the nature of what we're kind of generally looking at over the course of several meetings. The building committee hires the architect, they start coming up with numbers and all the rest, and then it's like, okay, here's the range, and then the library, the staff, and the board start looking at, okay, if this is the range of money they're talking about, then how are we going to address different parts of that range? And what will we be looking at in terms of bonding and looking at.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to drive what we look at now, what size we're talking about.
Yeah, so I think, in tandem.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Anything online?
I do not have any emails from the public.
Okay. Great. Okay. So